Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Million Friend Network. Tonight, we're going to introduce a new program right here on the Million Friend Network, and it is Meet Our Friends. We think our friends are one in a million, so we want you to meet them. We want you to learn about the people that are part of the Million Friend Network, and they're supporting us. We want you to meet them. Tonight, we have Craig Montgomery with us, and he's no stranger to the Million Friend Network and Words Matter Publishing. And so I'm happy to have you here tonight, Craig.
Thank
How's
you,
your
Craig.
evening going?
So far, so good.
Okay, so Craig, tonight we want to learn more about you. Where were you born at?
I was born in KwaZulu-Natal in South Africa, which is on the Indian Ocean coast of Africa.
Mm-hmm.
It's a harbor port that was established by the British back in the days of Shaka. It's probably one of the biggest ports in Africa.
It's a pretty big shipping port, and
yes.
yeah. So now, how long were you in South Africa before you came to the United States?
On and off for 30 years. I stayed there until I was in my early 20s, 30s, and then traveled through Europe, came back, stayed there again, then immigrated to the United States in my middle 30s. And
what was the immigration process like for you?
Well, I was very lucky. There was an advertisement in the paper that said, "Green Card Lottery, United States Government Green Card Lottery." Well, I thought it was, I didn't believe it at first. And it was just a little advert, no bigger than maybe 2 inches long by an inch wide.
Mm-hmm.
And 3 times we put it in. And on the 3rd time, this big white packet arrived, and it had a big old stamp. And I said, "We're going to America." And after a year of paperwork and blood tests and many, many other things that we had to jump through hoops to do, we had our interview. I sold my 2 companies. I had 2 electrical line companies that I was building power lines all over Natal. And we immigrated to the United States. And at that time, the Rand dollar exchange was, I think, 5 to 6 to 1. So by the time we came to America, buying plane tickets and exchanging our money and all that good stuff,
Mm-hmm.
we had nothing but $10,000 when we arrived. It's kind of scary.
Yeah, it would be kind of scary. You've left everything you know. You've sold everything you own. You're in a foreign country. Did you even, well, you've always.
I had a friend here that I'd helped in Greece on my many travels. Something had happened in a place, and he needed a little help, and I helped him.
Uh-huh.
We won't go into details, but I helped him in the situation, and we still friends. When I called him, he said to me that he was in Utah, and I wasn't sure where Utah was. Told me, "Have you met Mormons?" And I said, "Oh, I thought it was Amish people," and he told me no. Anyway, I arrived here. It was during the Winter Olympics, and I've been here ever since.
Well, so what do you think of our great country?
It was a culture shock for sure. The movies give you a false sense of what really goes on here. It at first was quite difficult. It's quite difficult because when you first arrive here, you're under the understanding that you're on your own. You cannot ask for welfare. You're not allowed to do welfare if you want to become a U.S. citizen. You have to be clean for 5 years. So for 5 years, it doesn't matter if you're sick or you got a problem, you go to work. And so I went to work. And the first job I got, I was laying up. I'd never seen snow before in my entire life.
Okay.
And it was That was something else for me. I'd never seen snow in 30 years.
Well, did
So
you like snow?
I got used to it. I, I'm used to the seasons now, so that's a little different. I'm used to actually, I mean, I looked like an Eskimo when I first came here. It was that bad because I lived in the tropics and when the tropics, your blood is thinner because you don't need to be, the colder, it doesn't affect you as much.
Mm-hmm.
And plus, high up in the mountains, like here in Utah, it's quite high above sea level, and a lot of Olympic trainers come and train here for the altitude training, and it was extremely difficult because I couldn't breathe. I was used to this tropical soup that I'd lived in for so long, and um, being down there, you sweat too. It's incredible because you're in this huge humidity, and then you come into a place where it's dry, extremely dry, and the air is extremely thin. And it was difficult in the beginning. I mean, I used to fall asleep in the middle of my drive, and I'd have to pull over just to get to work. It was hard in the beginning, and no family. So, but I made it. It was okay.
So it was quite a struggle to begin with.
I wouldn't say a struggle. It was just it's like you're not sure if you're gonna make it or not because you're on your own. There's no help. There's no family to ask for money. There's nothing. You're on your own. So I was very, very lucky. I got a job within 3 days, and I had help, and I'm blessed. I was blessed. I must be honest. I was honestly blessed.
Wonderful. So I understand that you had some military deployments. Would you like to talk to us about those?
Yes. So in South Africa, we were compulsory to do military training. In the beginning, it used to be 8 months. Then 9 months, and then it became a year. Then it became 2 years. And by the time I had finished school, it was 2 years. So I thought, wait a minute. Maybe I can go join the military, do a trade, do my military training, and to get all my education all in one time, and cut some years away. Well, it didn't work out too well that way. But anyway, I joined the Navy, the permanent Navy down there. My grandfather had been in the Navy. My father had been in the Navy, and it was kind of tradition to be in the Navy. None of my brothers, they went into the Army, but I went to the Navy. And I did 4 years in the Navy, uneventful. We did, I was on minesweepers and strike craft. And then my last year, I was in combined terrorist operations on Salisbury Island. And then I left and went to go to trade outside, and then became a merchant seaman. I went back to sea as an electrical officer and came home again after lots of deployments into Europe, and started some electrical companies. Came back, won a green card, which was amazing because out of 42,000 people that were picked that year, only 17,000 were granted for Africa, and I was one of them.
Wow. For the whole country of Africa, not just
The
South
whole
Africa.
the whole continent of Africa. Only 17,000 people were picked for the continent of Africa, and we were lucky enough to be one of them. Anyway, came to America. Then after 9/11, and the Olympics had finished, Utah became, well, most of the country basically collapsed overnight. Airlines collapsed. Most factories went to 3-day weeks just to survive. Back in 2003, the economy was extremely bad. It was bad. I was in serious trouble. I mean, I was scraping. I was working 2-3 jobs just to make ends meet, just to pay the bill, and decided December of that 2003 was pretty bad when you go into $all to go buy things for your kids for Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
But come early February of 2004, I heard that this all about Iraq, and in this area, the funny thing is in 9/11, I was on the Logan Airport putting in runway lights when that happened that day, never thinking I would spend the next 8 years in Iraq helping the military fight this war. In February 15th, I went to Houston. I went to Houston with Halliburton.
Mm-hmm.
And I went initially as an electrician.
Mm-hmm.
And while I was there that week, they shot down the DLS, is it DLS? Well, like FedEx plane. It's
right.
yeah. Anyway, they shot the plane down. They shot it with a SAM missile in the airport in Baghdad, and so they delayed us by 2-3 weeks. So I arrived in Baghdad on the 15th of March. Yeah, 15th of March 2004. I left Iraq on the 26th of October 2011.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I went. So I arrived in Baghdad. I was in Liberty Camp, and the funny part was, we flew into Baghdad, and then they started circling the airport. And on the way down, they were circling so that they couldn't hit us with a SAM missile. We literally flew sideways down the runway with a 747. They turned that thing, they landed it, and once we landed, they were rushing everybody to get out of it. Everybody was screaming. There was bags on top of everybody, and they were screaming, "Get out the plane, get out the plane!" And they're mortaring us. And they were literally mortaring the runway as we were coming in. So that was the beginning of my experience in Iraq. So we got into the airport, and a lot of people didn't want to stay. They wanted to go back home. Mm-hmm. At least half that plane wanted to leave. And I was like, "Where's the bus? Let's go."
Quite an initiation, wasn't it?
Well, the thing is, I lived in a civil war in South Africa. Mm-hmm. We had lived through war. We had lived through things. I had worked in the African townships in the middle of a civil war. I was used to conflict. It didn't worry me. It didn't scare me. Mm-hmm. I was used to the sound of AK-47s and bombs going off, and it didn't bother me. I'd been through so much. It was like, okay, this is normal. Instantaneously clicked with it. I initially went into Liberty Camp and then volunteered to go into the red zone. I'd heard that one of the guys that was with me, Todd Keller, he was an ex-Air Force guy and IT guy, and he was in this other camp called Rustenmeyer, Rocket mm-hmm. Rustenmeyer, and he said, "This is a red zone, but they need electricians. Get your butt over here." So I did. Mm-hmm. I jumped. I got over there and became the initial electrician, and then I applied for the security department, and I ended up running the security for that camp. I then got transferred to Camp Falcon, where I met General Knapp, who's General Knapp now in California, General Haley, General Cordone. They were all colonels and captains and lieutenant colonels, and we're still friends today. Anyway, I was in Falcon for a year, and then they sent me back to Rustenmeyer because it was so bad that the guys there couldn't handle it. So they sent me back there to handle that. I designed special bunkers. I became a force protection expert in the end. I found tunnels under the camps. I found I broke number of cases over there for terrorist threats, thefts, all kinds of stuff. One day I'm going to write a book about this.
Are you really?
Yes, I'm going to write a book. And it's just going to be called Just Call Me Hawk. And that name came from, that's where the name came from, Just Call Me Hawk. Was I was in Camp Falcon. I arrived there and they said the security and operations names are operations is Night Owl and security is Night Hawk. And I said, just call me Hawk. And it stuck. And it's been my name for years now. So from Falcon, I went back to Rustamaya for a year. It got so bad that they finally pulled me out. It was too much. I was doing 18-hour days, literally barely sleeping in my clothes. We were getting hit 6 times a day, sometimes 44 rockets at a time. We would get mortared constantly. If they didn't hit us one day, it felt like a holiday. They called their place Rocket Rust, and a lot of people. It was anybody that's been there knew what we went through. They then sent me to Camp Shield, which was up in, and that's where Chris Carr was, and a few other people. The guy
Did you know Chris?
You know what? I must be honest with you. I saw him, didn't know it was him. He was. I actually have a picture of his son, where his office was, or where they were kind of based out of. I found it. I found it. It's actually on my Facebook page. If you look carefully, I think I blocked those pictures, but I'll bring it out. There's a picture of the Greek mask from the.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, from what were they called? Anyway, it was his symbol. And I think the carpenters made him a sign with a light behind it. It was actually on their office door, on their office thing. And only after I saw the movie, I realized who he was. Never knew it was him. And I was there for 3 years. The guy that died with the ambassador in Benghazi, Smith, he was in that camp as well. And I only realized once I'd seen the pictures of him on TV that I knew him. He was one of the main IT guys there. So I think he was, I can't tell you who the names were because I don't want to get in trouble, but they were there. That camp had a lot of people came through there, but Petraeus was there every day. And I met a lot of ex-South Africans who were there doing security as well. Ex-32 Battalion, ex-Rakis, ex-Kufut guys, a lot of ex-policemen, a lot of guys. And they lost people too. It wasn't easy. The police college was next door, and those guys reduced the car bombs from 1 a day to almost nothing by expanding areas and changing all the search areas, and a lot of IEDs and human bombs. They stopped it by changing the ways things were done. These guys were smart. They knew what they were doing. I learned a lot from them too. Anyway, going from there, I went back to I was in actually when I was in Rustamaya, before I left Rustamaya, we had a very bad attack one day. 22 mortars, 120s. These are big mortars, and we had a fire going in one of the showers, and we thought there was somebody in there. And the medic had tried to climb on the roof, and it had fallen off. And I had him on the wall, and then we needed an axe because the place started catching fire. And so I ran across the field, went to the fire truck, asked him for a hook and an axe to go back. And on the way back, 2 rockets came in, and I dived, and I messed up my leg. And when I stood up, my left leg wasn't working right. So I basically pulled my flak jacket off because I couldn't take the weight. only found out, and I refused to go home because I just wanted to stay there. So I ate it. Ate a lot of Tylenol and a lot of pain pills. And 4 years later, I found out that I'd broken the cartilage in my hip, and I'd worn it down to bone on bone. So I'd walked like that for almost 4 years. And when I went to camp, they moved me from Shield back to Al Assad, which was one of the biggest Marine camps in Iraq. I ran the security for one of the sections there for a year, and funny enough, I ran into a colonel there in the middle of the night. I went up to the guy and I said, "Excuse me, sir, how many medics do you have? How many this do you have? Can you tell me this? Because I need to put it down on my report, blah, blah." And he looked at me and he said, "Craig?" And I said, "Yeah," but I couldn't see his face because of his helmet and all the stuff on. It's the middle of the night. And it was Colonel Eddie Gillen. He was a major back in 05. And yeah, the two of us are like basically jumping for joy and hugging each other and carrying on like little kids, and everybody's looking at us like we were crazy. And they were running up to me and they said, "You know him? You know him?" And I said, "Yeah, he's my buddy." He says, he's our commander now. He's the man." And it was amazing. And he's a full bird colonel now. So, it's a small world. And here I was, years later. I see this guy again. Another guy was Harrison, Sergeant Major Harrison. I heard this voice and I walked on there and he had hundreds of guys he was talking to. He stopped what he was doing and he started screaming and hugging me, and we were jumping around as well. It was amazing. Yeah, you can't get that brotherhood, man. It's unbelievable. Anyway.
Yeah, we've heard a lot about that, about the series, The Band of Brothers, and there's something that is formed between people when they live in that type of situation, isn't there?
Yeah, you can't. I mean, it's weird because if you've been in that thing, it doesn't matter who you are. If you've never experienced that, you don't know what that feeling is. The first day you hear a rocket fly over your head and explode, or the motor go off, or you see what we see afterwards, or the damage in the people and your friends, and you become sometimes immune to it. You become almost cold because you don't want to accept the fact that, and then after the first 2 years you decide that you don't want friends, and people don't understand that you become friendless because it's safer that way for your own emotions. And when you come home, it's kind of hard because you have to take yourself out of the picture, and a lot of guys couldn't, and it has been difficult. But I digress now. So then
that's fine.
I went and resigned from Halliburton and went to another company in Afghanistan. Before I left, I had a hip operation in India. I went to India. I did it in India because they could do it faster, for cheaper, and in 30 days, I think I left the hospital in India on November the 22nd, 2011, and October November. Was it November? Yes, November 22nd, I left. November 22nd, I left the hospital in India. And on the 25th of December, 2011, I entered Afghanistan. I was in Bagram Airport on Christmas Day. On the 25th, it was actually Christmas Day. It was minus 30 degrees. I was carrying an 80-pound pack, and dragging this thing. And I was limping, and everybody was like, "What's wrong? What's wrong?" And I said, "Oh, I went to gym. I got blisters on my feet." Nobody knew that I was actually still had stitches in my leg from the hip operation, but I made it. 2 years later, I'd gone home and then went back again and landed up in the mountains of Marsak, later with the Marsaks, and then I was up in Massamgar for a while, and then I went to the Camp Rob with the Marsucks and Marine Special Forces. I was their electrician. We were way up in the mountains, a very dangerous place. That's a whole nother story. That'll all be in the book.
It'll all be in the book. Good.
Yeah, especially when they pick you up and they say, "Hey, after you've just gone through hell to get in there," and then they say, "Hey, you want some ice cream?" That's just blows your mind just thinking about it. Anyway, it was kind of bittersweet because my next door neighbor was killed. He was an old black guy from Louisiana, made you laugh every day. Like kind of took the edge off. Always was joking, and he got killed, and man, they were mad. Everybody was mad. That was probably the worst thing for me in all that time, because he made life better. It's kind of it's one of the things that hurt me more, I suppose. And like I said, I let my guard down, and he was a funny guy. He walked past you and act like he didn't see you, and he'd say, "I got you." He was that kind of, he was a very funny guy. He was always joking, always friendly, always nice. And it was always the good guys that die young. It just sucks. But
yeah.
We got our revenge. I won't say how we did it, but we did. Yeah, then I came home, and when I came home, I landed up in the oil fields, and I got a call from my sister, and she told me that there's some serious stuff going on in South Africa, and they need help down there. And I had not, I'd been so busy with my own life, I never thought about it. And I started reading up on what was going on, and decided that I needed to do something. I couldn't walk away. When I read the statistics that 70,000 white people had been murdered since 1994, that there were massive amounts of rape, torture, and abuse, farmers getting killed, old people being raped and murdered and tortured, children as young as 2 years old, the parents forced to watch them being tortured and raped, and nothing was getting done. I started a petition to bring crimes against humanity against the government of South Africa for not stopping it, taking guns away from whites and minorities because they couldn't defend themselves, and when they did defend themselves, they were being arrested for defending themselves, which is another human rights violation. They started taking land away from people and that's just without compensation. That's another human rights violation. And so with that, we started USAC, and then USAC became the United South African Coalition, because I felt that if I could unite the people and remove the racism, remove the division, 24 years, everybody's been through a cooking pot of a lot of stuff. They came out of apartheid with Mandela becoming free. He became the president, but the ANC always had a plan to do this. They were just waiting for Mandela to die, and when Mandela died, they fast-tracked it to where we are today at the present point. And so I found even in the white communities and the minority communities, there's factions there that they're so splintered, so angry, so distrustful of each other that nobody's uniting. And when you divide people, you conquer them. And when you put fear in people, you conquer them. And when you take away any way that they can defend themselves, you conquer them. And if you take away, and when I looked at the laws that they have passed, they have 165 laws that deny white people and minorities jobs. They deny them access to healthcare. They deny them access to money. They support jobs, any government contracts. They force companies to take on it's the only country in the world that has a discriminative law where the majority dominates the minority, not the other way around. Affirmative action is the other way around. It's for the majority, not for the minority. So kids coming out of school can't get jobs. So you have 100,000 white squatters in South Africa.
Now, what exactly is a squatter, Craig?
Is a person that can't function in society due to the fact they have no jobs, they're living in shacks, and they have no food. They're literally begging on the street because they have no functional way of making money. So they're landing up in these squatter camps. 90% of the children are not going to school. A lot of the parents are uneducated now. There's a lot of interbreeding going on. There's a lot of murders, abuse, things that are. These children are hungry. They don't have clothes, and it's a disgrace.
And the government is not doing anything about it.
The government is complicit in this thing, and so I've been adamant for the last since early last year. I started with one video. I was in my truck and I said, this decision on land reform is irresponsible. It's a human rights violation. And I'm going to bring the world, excuse me, and I'm going to bring the world with me. And I'm going to show you what I can do. And I'm not going to stop till I bring you down, because you cannot do this to your people. And I'm not only talking about white people, I'm talking about everybody, because people don't realize that if they take all these farms, they will end up just like Zimbabwe. South Africa is the bread basket of Africa right now. It is probably the only country left in Africa that's producing enough food to help everybody. Well, not everybody. It used to produce a lot more. The problem is, if these farms collapse, there will be a humanitarian crisis of epic proportions. That cannot be done. That has to be stopped right now. Not only that, I found some serious issues down there that need to be addressed, that are security issues for the rest of the world. And I won't discuss them on here, but there's some serious security. Yeah. As for military, I am hoping and praying that there's no civil war. It is on the brink of civil war right now, because the whites have got to a point where they cannot go into the sea. Their backs against the wall now. They have nowhere else to go. They cannot take this lying down. You have political parties there that are stating that they are advocating the killing of white women and children and their pets. If one black person is murdered, this is racism, pure racism. They still sing in the song, the liberation song, kill the Boer, one bullet, one Boer, meaning kill the farmer. Just this week alone, there was 15 farm attacks, one murder. In the last, every single month and every single week, there's at least 8 to 10 murders on these farms. And they're killing the farmers to get them off the land. But nobody knows how to farm. And what is happening?
There's no logic in this.
No, it's deliberate. It's deliberate, and these people that are doing it are trained military people. They have military high-grade cell phone jamming and radio jamming equipment they've been caught with on security cameras. These people do not steal anything. They will take the stuff, the cars, drive them up the road and abandon the stuff there. They're not taking anything. They're deliberately torturing people for hours. They took an old man, wrapped a towel around his head, boiling water, poured it over his head. They went into one family's house and drowned the young boy in boiling hot water. They drowned him in the bath. They killed the rest of the family. They cut one father's eyelids off so he could watch his 2-year-old daughter be raped. This has to be stopped. And I will do it as long as I live. I will not stop till this is stopped. This is the one thing that I'm doing, and I'm the president now of the United South African Coalition. My main job is to bring a coalition to take the government away from the one that they have right now, remove it, and put a democratic, Christian-based free market system that is based on non-racial policies, where there is no such thing as a color in the country.
Mm-hmm.
Every single child born under that African sun, including me, should be called an African. The narrative that black people only belong in Africa is a lie. Africa is not a color, it's a continent based out of millions and millions of different types of people.
Mm-hmm.
Most of Africa is 50% Arab, 40% black, and the rest is the mix between Asians and whites, Caucasians. The Caucasians in South Africa have been there since 1652, and most of the Nguni tribes arrived in southern Africa in the 1800s, and that's a fact. The actual indigenous people of South Africa are the Khoi.
Yes. Yes.
And they are upset too, because they're saying that they don't agree with what's being said. They've even demanded that the government, they've actually demanded their land back.
Mm-hmm.
So this whole narrative of land grabbing and all that should have been, it was all addressed 24 years ago. The government that's in power right now is absolutely and utterly corrupt. There's not one department, not one policeman, nothing that has not been corrupted. Every politician takes a bribe, every government official's taking bribes, everybody's taking bribes. They're all complicit in what has happened. They have stolen most of the funds and the reserves of the country. The electricity, one of the most powerful generated electrical systems that was ever created in the whole of the southern hemisphere, Eskom, was corrupted to the point that it's now collapsed, that they cannot produce enough electricity to keep the country running 24 hours a day because of corruption, inept management, and a number of other things.
Mm-hmm.
And what we find quite shocking is that there's a company that was bribing all the politicians with huge amounts of money just to get contracts in the government. And the only way you could get contracts in the government was to bribe the politicians. They put these people in jail, and the politicians are still sitting in parliament because who asked for the bribes in the first place?
Right.
It doesn't make sense. They should all be in jail. The problem is it goes all the way to the top, from the boss to the bottom. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a serious issue. So with the government, the problem now is that one doesn't understand that probably 200 people run a country of 50 million people. 200 people are creating this mess of corruption and murder and rape and all this other stuff because of terrible laws. So what I've embarked on is interviewing all the new parties, all the leaders of the new parties, their manifestos and what they stand for. And I'm not just doing it as a politician sort of thing where I talk to a politician who goes, wah, 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 wah. No. I want to know this person. Everybody wants to know the person first, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do you trust somebody if you don't know who they are?
Right.
So what I've embarked on is not going, hey, well, sir, this and that. No, I want to be your buddy. I want to know, okay, so what do you think of this? And what do you think of that? And I'm pulling information from him. I want him to be him. Because in the end, he's going to be your leader. I want to know what's inside this man's heart. How do you feel about
Right.
certain things. And so far, I'm starting to get request after request after request now, because they're starting to realize people are listening. They want to hear something better. A man who is hungry wants to hear hope. A man who is full belly is not going to listen, right?
Right.
What's happening now is that most of the population in South Africa are in dire straits. Whites, blacks, everybody. Because of the economy, people are just listening to anything and everything. And you got guys out there spewing racism, false promises of free, free, free. It's impossible.
So, Craig, do you think that there is a solution? And I know there is an election coming up in South Africa relatively soon in May. Do you think that after the election, things are going to calm down over there and that the country can move forward?
Well, here's what I'm hoping. What scares me more than anything else is that the elections will be not free and fair. This will create a huge problem, because if the certain parties that we know will corrupt their way in, and I'm talking about the EFF, the BLF, and the ANC, if this is the case, you're looking at a civil war. And I'm hoping that that is not the case. I'm praying that that is not the case, because not one family will not be affected by this. It will also collapse that country, and it will never survive. It'll never come back. It'll take years and years and years, because once you kill a man, he doesn't forget, nor does his family. And that hatred has been going on for too long now. It needs to stop. And there's a lot of Christian blacks and whites that are coming together and bonding and saying, no more, enough is enough. And that's where the future is. I believe that if they have enough parties that get strong enough votes to vote these evil people out, like they're evil, they're literally evil. To me, two things are evil: racism and power. Power is a sickness. It's really a sickness. Once they get that power, they can't handle being the small guy. It's a greedy. It's just like Robert Mugabe could never give it up. He was so arrogant and he was so sick on power that he couldn't, and he led his own people into poverty. And this is where this is going as well. And it happens all over Africa. Corruption is a human rights violation. There's a professor, a black professor, who stated that corruption is a human rights violation, and that's what it is. It really is. Anyway, enough of that. For now, I'm hoping that the elections will come to what they are. But that's one of my missions. My other mission is to uplift that country later on, to create jobs, to get more work in there, to get more investments, all kinds of stuff. There's a lot of programs that can be done, and I want to help. I want to give advice. I want to get people that are subject matter experts to give them to the right people with an ear, not the people that don't want to hear, that they just go, no, I don't want to hear your story, because that's what's been going on for too long.
Right.
People need to sit down with an open ear and listen and see and get help. And once they've learned a skill, that skill would generate to the rest of the people. Another thing is, you cannot not educate your children. And Africa needs trade schools, hundreds of schools. So anyway, from there, I'm going to start my own TV channel called Talking with Hawk. Deployed. And what that will be is for the veterans of the United States, the forgotten voices who have given their blood, their sweat, and their tears for this country.
Yes.
To all the soldiers in the world who want to tell their story to me, I'm going to open that up for them. To all the soldiers in this country who went through hell and they're at home right now, and all they want to do is tell their story,
You're going to give them a platform to talk, aren't you?
I'm going to give you a platform to talk. I'm going to find a way where you can tell us what happened that day when you lost your best buddy, or you guys won the battle, or there was something that affected you that day.
Mm-hmm.
Come and tell me your story. And my best friend is General Knapp. He's in California right now. I met General Knapp at 2 o'clock in the morning in Camp Falcon. I found some people inside our camp and we fixed it, him and I. And we
I don't think we want to know what that means, but okay.
So we fixed it, and we fixed a lot of other things together. We became best of friends.
Mm-hmm.
And him and I talked to him today, and he's gonna help me. And we want to bring the stories of the veterans out, even the ones that are still left alive today from the Second World War. We'll talk to soldiers from all over the world, South African soldiers, Russian soldiers, mostly American veterans. I want them to tell their story, especially the Korean guys from the Forgotten War who have not much time left. They want to tell their story. Everybody ignored them, let them go. But they've got a story to tell.
Mm-hmm.
How they beat
Well,
the
that's highly
Chinese.
commendable.
Yeah. I lived with them for 10 years. I ate with them. I carried them. I helped the wounded. And I fought with them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's my way of giving back to this country as well.
Wonderful. That's all commendable, Craig. And we thank you for sharing it with us here on the Million Friend Network. And this is the first of many stories. You see, the Million Friend Network is made up of people all over the world. We are a worldwide network, and we're growing every day. And we want to share the stories of more of our members. And that's why we've launched this program to where you can meet our members. And if there's anybody else out there that would like to come on and talk about things that you're doing in your life or things that have had meaning in your life, just send a message right here to the Million Friend Network, and I will get a hold of you, and we will make arrangements for you to tell your story and share those things that you are doing to make the world a little bit better. We believe that we are going to grow to several million right here, and as that group, as we grow and everything, nothing's going to be impossible for us. And I thank you for being the first member of the Million Friend Network to be interviewed here. What else do you have to tell us before you go, Craig?
There's only one race in this world. It's called the human race.
And that's true.
And if we all looked at it that way, there wouldn't be this mess we're in today. People got to realize that there is no such thing as a black man or a white man or a colored man or a Indian man or whatever, because in reality we're all human beings, and the human being is made up of many colors and many rainbows colors in different ways, and we all listen. If we were all the same, it'd be boring. So hypothetically, we all had one blue eye, one brown eye, and half our body was black and white, right? And we all looked the same. We had half streaks in our hair with red, black, and blonde, or whatever. And we all looked the same. Our lives would be boring.
Yes.
People need to realize that who divides us, we are not born racists. We're taught to be racists. When you are born, you are a blank slate, complete blank slate. God does not teach you how to be a racist. Somebody taught you to be a racist. Right? And the only way you can solve that is to look at yourself in the mirror and say, why do I do this? And the funny thing about humans are we laugh. Why do we laugh? Why do we laugh? We laugh at somebody else being a fool. We laugh at somebody else being different to what we are. And yet, We never look at ourselves.
So true. Words of wisdom to ponder on. And for many of you in the Million Friend Network, like I said, we are a worldwide network. For many of you, you see that Craig is deeply involved in battles where people are being killed over in this day and age over racism. And he's deeply involved into stopping that and getting people to realize that there is only one race, and that is the human race. So we commend him for that.
One more thing before I go. I would like to say one thing. In South Africa, every minute, a woman is raped. Sometimes 3 every minute. And women are terrorized down there. And young and old and black and white, it doesn't matter. That is absolutely horrendous, and that needs to stop.
So do you think with a change of government that there will be leaders that can get control of this country and slowly start a path forward for South Africa?
2 of the leaders I've already interviewed, they are adamant that they will sort it out. They will not tolerate it anymore. They will be ruthless in the pursuit of the law. And I've always said this, if the law does not prevail, you have no law.
And that's true.
And it's like crossing the border into the United States. I know I diverse here, but one step into the United States, you've broken my law. You've broken our laws. Therefore, they should not be given any privileges at all. You've broken the law. I'm not saying tell people not to come here. Do it legally. I did it. I came here legally. It took me 7 years to become a citizen, and I bled in Iraq for this country, right? So I don't have any sympathy for people who break the law. You come into my country and you step one step into the United States, you have broken our laws. And if our laws do not prevail, we have no law. And any politician that tells you anything different is a traitor to his own country. I'm sorry, but that's how I feel. You're a traitor to this country, this great nation, and nobody should be granting these people who break our laws any privileges at all. They should not ever be allowed back in here again. Because if you break the law now, you'll always break the law. Because you have no regard for our rules. And rules matter.
I agree, because without them, you have nothing but lawlessness. We're going to sign off for tonight, Craig.
Yes.
Oh, go ahead. You had something left?
Yes, because it breeds contempt. It breeds contempt for the law if the law does not prevail. Thanks
for being here. All right, we're signing off. We're saying goodbye to Craig. We will be back with more friends of our Million Friend Network for you to meet and to learn more about, because right here on this network, there are amazing people who have done amazing things and are still doing amazing things. So we'll be back. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.